Hello and welcome to this second video on the incident of the letter. In today's extract we're going to look at this brilliant description of the setting, and I'm going to teach you these three things that will bring your writing to grade 8 and 9. The fog still slept on the wing above the drowned city, where the lamps glimmered like carbuncles, and through the muffle and smother of these fallen clouds, the procession of the town's life was still rolling in through the great arteries with a sound as of a mighty wind. Okay, so let's get straight into the contrast and juxtaposition, a word that you should always use in your writing. And it's there to show us the duality of man. So what we've got here are these opposites that are put together in this extract. So the fog is described as sleeping and therefore safe and at peace, whereas the city is also safe and at peace, but in a more cynical way, the city is dead, it's been drowned. We've got the contrast of lamps, which offer light, with carbuncles, which are growths on the underside of boats and therefore living in darkness. We've got a contrast within this, clouds which are normally in the sky. Here they have fallen as fog. So another contrast, and again you've got the idea of life, which has been contrasted with the idea of the drowned city. And once again the duality of nature is presented here, but also in a slightly different way, because Stevenson here is suggesting that death is coming. And the question is, the death of what? Well, in terms of the plot, we're going to have the deaths of both Jekyll and Hyde, and Dr. Lanyon, and Sir Danvers Carew. 4 people are going to die in this novel. It's quite a lot, actually. But more than that, he's suggesting that a whole way of life is dying, which is why the city is reflected as dying. So let's explore that way of life in a bit more detail with the other two. So we've got imagery here of a metaphor and simile, which reflects the theme, not the them, let's just correct that, which reflects the theme of hiding as oppression. So let's look for this. So the drowned city is obviously a metaphor, and it's the idea that the city has been oppressed by the fog, but this reflects how Victorian hypocrisy is oppressing the city. Now, what's interesting about this is Stevenson is possibly suggesting that the city would be better off if people like Hyde weren't hidden. In other words, if Jekyll could express his desires as he wished and not be at the risk of public shame or ridicule, then society would be much better. In fact, he'd never have had to create this alternative alter ego Hyde. And this brings us back to the suspicion that the thing that's most repressed in Jekyll is homosexual desire. And it's only because his true nature has needed to be suppressed in this way that Hyde becomes so violent and destructive. And Stevenson could be suggesting that that's happening throughout the city. All the city is becoming morally corrupt because things which people should be able to do, they can't. They're prohibited from doing. Right, let's now look at the simile, which I've lost. And here it is. The lamps glimmered like carbuncles. So this is oxymoronic, really, because carbuncles are growths of like seashells and what have you growing on the bottom of boats. They don't glimmer at all. They're dark and ugly. Which suggests that even the lamps, even light, is being oppressed. So even good things like light are being made worse by this culture of hypocrisy in the city. Well, how do we get the culture of hypocrisy? Through the personification of fog. So what Stevenson is suggesting here is that by keeping things secret and obscure, which is what the fog does, it stops you seeing things properly, the city is actually being made worse. Whereas normally you'd try and keep secrets, to keep the unpleasant stuff secret in order to make things better. But actually what's being suggested here is that's making things worse. Next we go to the personification, which hints that the negativity of the view of Hyde is the wrong social construct. So this is the view of society that I've been talking about here, and Stevenson's suggesting that actually our society would be better if people were allowed to be, for example, to have sex before marriage. Then there wouldn't be the attraction of prostitution, which is hinted at that Hyde would be interested in, and I've already mentioned the suppression of homosexuality. Well, that's revealed here, where the life of the city is still rolling in through the great arteries with a sound as of a mighty wind. And so this suggests that this story is a turning point from the drowned city to a city where great arteries are coming back to life. So these scientific experiments that Jekyll is carrying out, although they seem destructive now, are going to cause this great city to live again. And we could infer from this that Stevenson is looking at this new theory of evolution, which takes away the control of God and says that no, we weren't actually created from mud or dust, and no, Eve wasn't actually created from Adam's rib. Those are just stories. We're actually descended from much older organisms, and we're still evolving. And the crucial thing about evolution is that it offers the opportunity of change, which here in the personification is away from a drowned city to a city that is now rolling with new life. So I hope you've found that useful, and look out for the next video tomorrow.